Okay, we're going to take a look at graphing. First off, anytime that you graph, we have to graph from slope-intercept form. Uh, the first thing that you have to be able to do in slope-intercept form is to get y by itself. Now, sometimes y is already by itself. Other times, you have to actually do stuff to get y by itself. And we do have another section just on getting y by itself, so you can look at those notes if you need to. All right, so we're going to look at slope-intercept form. And here, obviously, y is already by itself. When y is by itself, there are two things that stick out. First, you have the number, which is called the constant. And I know here it's a letter, but the number that is by itself is called the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. And we will always find the y-intercept first and plot it first before we move on to the second thing. The second thing is the number in front of x, the coefficient of x, which is called the slope. And the slope can only be used from a starting point. Our starting point is the y-intercept. So that's why we must plot the y-intercept first before we can move on to slope. So those are the two numbers that we'll be looking for. And it's important to remember that slope is always the number in front of x, and the y-intercept will always be the number that is by itself. So we take a look at our first example, and we can see that the y-intercept is the number by itself, and the slope is the number in front of x. And so just like we said, we're going to end up plotting the y-intercept first. So the y-intercept, which is b, is 2. And then our slope is 3. And we always view slope as a fraction. So even though it says 3, 3 as a fraction is 3 over 1. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go to our y-intercept. Now our y-intercept, or our y-axis, is this axis right here, and then this is our x-axis. The y-intercept always goes on the y-axis. And so when we see that our y-intercept is 2, we're going to go up 2 on our y-intercept and put a point. Then, once you have that point, we can use the slope. Now, the slope is also known as rise over run. And from my y-intercept, that first point, I'm going to use the slope, which is 3 over 1, and because it's a positive 3, we're going to go up. Now, the green dots that I'm putting just show me going up 3, and then show me going to the right 1. Then we'll put a dot after we've gone up 3 over 1. We're going to put a dot right there. So the slope told me to go up 3, and then we always go to the right 1. If it would have been a negative, then we would have went down, and we'll see that on the next example. Positive tells me to go up, but I always go to the right once I get finished with that. Okay, then once you have your two dots, now we're going to draw our line. So I'm going to draw our line right there, and we have now graphed our line. Okay, next example. We're going to graph 3x plus 2y is equal to negative 8. The first thing we have to do is get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 3x from both sides and then get 2y is equal to negative 3x minus 8. Then divide everything by 2 those cancel, and y is equal to negative 3 over 2x minus 4. Once again, y is by itself, so the number by itself is our y-intercept, so it's negative 4, and our slope is negative 3 over 2. So we're going to start off by plotting our y-intercept first, which is negative 4. So on the y-axis, which once again is that axis, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to put a point. Okay, now from that point, because our slope is a negative 3 over 2, we're going to go down 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then always to the right 2. Well, not always to the right 2, but always to the right. And this time we're going over 2. And then we put our dot. Once we have that dot, now we can draw our line. And we have now graphed that line. So graphing, we will always get y by itself. And the number in front of x is always the slope. And the number by itself is always the y-intercept. And we always plot the y-intercept first, and that gives us a starting point for our slope. And then our slope helps us find that second point. And once we have that second point, then we can graph our line. We also have two special equations. The first special equation that we're going to look at is y equals negative 5. Now, what you should notice about this is that we only have a y. And because we only have a y, the line that we're going to draw can only cross the y-axis. And so I have this line that can only cross the y-axis at negative 5. So I'm going to go find, on the y-axis, I'm going to go find negative 5. So go down 1, 3, 4, 5. So right here is negative 5. Now I have a line that can only cross the y-axis. Well, in order for it to only cross the y-axis, it has to be a horizontal line. And so I'm going to draw a horizontal line right here, and this line is now graphed. That is all that you have to do. The important thing to remember is that it can only cross the y-axis. And since it can only cross the y-axis, it either has to be a horizontal line or a vertical line, and the horizontal line crosses the y-axis. The vertical line would run parallel to it. The next problem we're going to look at is x is equal to 3, and this one only crosses the x-axis. And so our x-axis is this axis right there, and it crosses at 3, so I'm going to go find 3. 2, 3. So right there's 3 on the x-axis. And then once again, it's either going to be a horizontal or a vertical line. And if it has to cross the x-axis, then a vertical line would be the line that crosses the x-axis. And once you draw that line in, you are done. So the two special equations, they're pretty easy. One's horizontal, one's vertical. And if it's x equals, then it has to cross the x-axis, so it's a vertical line. And if it's y equals, then it has to cross the y-axis, so it would make it a horizontal line.